Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar was in Jacksonville today. Azar participated in several roundtables and meetings with healthcare leaders to learn more about how Florida is working to slow the spread of the coronavirus. And we do have live team coverage for you tonight. Robert Bradfield is at the TIAA Bank Field testing site, Lot J, where Azar was just under an hour ago. We also have our Heather Crawford tonight, who spoke exclusively with Secretary Azar. Heather.
Well, Anthony, we were the only local TV station to get a sit-down interview with Secretary Azar today, and he told me that he is happy to be in Jacksonville, happy to be part of reopening the country. And I spent about 15 minutes with him this afternoon as he answered all kinds of questions. Now, this morning, First Coast News was invited along as he toured Mayo Clinic to see how they're responding to the coronavirus and keeping their employees and patients safe. And then he visited Bernhardt Labs, where he saw it's helping with COVID-19 testing by doing things like 3D printing swabs to help maximize the number of tests available.
The conditions are there for us to get our country back to work and back to school and back to church. We can do so safely. You know, all too often people are describing this as health versus the economy. I don't see it that way. I see it as health versus health. I was able to see at Mayo Clinic, you know, people aren't getting cancer screenings. I was able to see here, they do a lot of women's health cancer screenings here at Bernhardt Labs. They're not getting screenings. Hundreds of thousands of cases of cancer are not getting diagnosed and treated in a timely manner.
And Secretary Azar told me today that he believes that there are real health consequences to the economy being shut down and people staying at home. So he said that really has to be balanced against the spread of this virus. I also asked him about the COVID-19 vaccine. He told me he's optimistic. He hopes, while there's no guarantees with science, he hopes that we could have 300 million doses available by January.
The Department of Defense and HHS are working across the whole of government and the private sector, and we're going to reduce inefficiency in the development of our vaccines, and we're also going to start manufacturing those vaccines even before we've been able to determine if they're safe and effective, and we'll be able to get approved by the FDA. Anything we use will be safe and effective, but we'll produce that so that we've got it on hand to start administering vaccine as soon as the FDA approves.
Now, I asked him if the COVID-19 vaccines would be mandatory. He told me that is something that would be up to state and local officials. And coming up tonight on First Coast News at 6, hear what he told me when I asked him about kids going back to school in the fall. Now, after he left Bernhardt Labs, he headed over to TIAA Bank Field to see the testing site there. And that's where we find On Your Side's Robert Bradfield continuing our live team coverage. Robert?
Good evening, Heather. Yes, his news conference wrapping up around 4:15 this afternoon, but he did tour this testing site. And you may remember this facility here, the parking lot of TIAA Bank Field, was deemed a federal testing site run by the federal government. It opened March 23rd, and we have learned that since March 23rd, more than 13,000 tests have been administered to the public. TIAA Bank Field also began COVID-19 antibody testing earlier this month. Now, that's a blood draw to determine if you've developed antibodies against the virus. That is separate from the diagnostic swab test that first began in late March. Secretary Azar says he really was impressed at the effectiveness of the test here and the overall experience from the workers to the members of the public driving through. Listen.
I am seeing infection control here that is at a level beyond what I've seen even in active, say, Ebola zones. Very tight infection control that they've gotten. That's the sort of the centerpiece of it. They're protecting patient privacy. They're gathering the information. They're ensuring that people's samples are connected to names. They're getting information. They're checking it twice, as they say. It's really as you would expect from our military. The processes are just incredible.
And really over the last hour or so, I've seen maybe about 20 cars go through this testing facility. We do want to remind you again, here at TIAA Bank Field, the testing runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. That's 7 days a week, weather permitting. It is open to anyone. You do not need to show symptoms, and the test here is free. Coming up tonight at 6 o'clock, I do ask Secretary Azar about reopening churches. That made some news earlier today with President Trump's announcement urging governors to reopen churches this weekend. I did ask Secretary Azar if that's a good thing, and again, you will hear his answer coming up tonight at 6. We're live tonight outside TIAA Bank Field. Robert Bradfield, First Coast News on your side.